Hello world, I've got a bit of a tale for you this time round. There's been a few times in the past where I've given up on a game. Now, if it's for review, I generally like to see it through to the end, but there have been occasions when I just couldn't. In those cases, I think it's important to indicate to my audience when I haven't finished something. It's important context in which to frame my critique. Which means I need to apologise for my Grim Fandango and Machinarium videos. I didn't complete either of those, and I should have said so in the video itself. I didn't, due to either a lack of time or a lack of patience, and I'm sorry for not being honest about that fact. Anyway, why would I be unable or unwilling to complete a game? Sometimes it's throwing too much moon logic at me and I've had enough. Sometimes I feel like I've gotten a good enough indicator of what the rest of the game will be like, but I haven't encountered anything like Demian the Ritual. If indeed that's how you pronounce it, I'm not 100% sure there. This game defeated me. I don't have another way of putting it. It's not even the worst game I've ever reviewed, but everything you could throw out to put me off, this game managed to do in the first hour. And honestly, it didn't look that good from the start. Plain faded background, a menu font that screams Unity Engine default, bare bones music, and a game title rendered in that bizarre military crate font that disappeared from the collective consciousness as soon as the 90s were over. But curiosity had me, so I plopped down my $2 and off I went. Now, the game's opening isn't a problem on its own, other than me having to think of something to say here, because me describing it would take roughly the same amount of time it would take to just play the thing in its entirety. Solid visuals, sets the scene of girl lost in forest, not much to complain about there. And on to Chapter 1, The Forest. Here's the forest, act surprised. We see a tree, act even more surprised, which is sporting a knife stabbed through a note. Now, kudos to the game, they introduced two of their main mechanics here in one fell swoop, inventory and notes. Inventory is accessed via the small tab at the top of the screen. Clicking an item will give you use or combine options. The use option essentially puts the item in your hand, ready to use on whatever you click on in the environment. The combine option lets you use items on items. Use the item first, so it has the circle around it there. Then click another item and click the combine option if it's not greyed out. And if you want to deselect or unuse an item, click it again and click don't. Just don't, that's all it says. Slight tangent here. Something you'll come up against very quickly is the quality of the English translation, and this is probably the most egregious example of that. Judging by the blog that the Steam page links to, the game comes from Korea, which makes me think that the text is probably the start of a longer sentence that would have fit in this space when in the Korean alphabet. Localization isn't solely about getting the words right, folks. As for the translation elsewhere, well, that depends on you. Personally, I can cope with a poor translation so long as there's no ambiguity with what it's trying to tell me. I don't want to get stuck because of it. You get a word wrong, fine, I'm not going to be that offended. Confuse me to the point where I don't know what's being said or what's been going on, I'll probably check out. With this game, it wasn't too hard to figure out what it was trying to say, and I could cope with that fine. On the other hand, you're going to see a typo or a grammatical error in virtually every line you read, at least every second one. If that's a deal breaker for you, then you shouldn't get this game. It's going to be a bad time for you. Because we didn't just pick up that knife earlier, we picked up the note it was stabbed through as well. We can access these notes through the book icon within the inventory, along with a symbols tab and a question mark tab. I'd be lying if I said I knew what those do. The notes are useful though, if you need to remind yourself of a puzzle hint or something. Not a lot of deep lore to find in here, honestly. They're on the terse side. So back to the forest, and another problem jumps out at me pretty quickly. That cursor never changes. What you'd hope for is some kind of indication as to what will happen if you click. Will you interact with a hotspot? Will you move to a new area? No idea, the game doesn't tell you. Nothing's show-stopping in fairness. A clearing between the trees will denote a path you can take, and the other hotspots you interact with are fairly obvious. You will have to try clicking on a few things in the scene to figure out what's interactive and what isn't, and it gets worse later on, but for now it's not terrible. We'll take one of those poorly marked paths and find our first obstacle, which is the vines. They've got some white lines drawn on them, the knife does nothing, we'll come back to it. Front and centre though, we have signposts to crow and body. Weirdly specific things to point out, but maybe this is the best the forest has in terms of tourist attractions. Since we can't go crow, let's go body. Well, the signpost did warn me, I guess. Not sure what I expected. More vines, a lad in a tree, and what's this on the left? Some kind of weird ladder for smalls? Not quite. They're levers. After you stab them with a knife, which I didn't even remember doing until I watched the footage back, you can make each of the levers point up, right or down, as well as swap between a fork-shaped end and a not-so-fork-shaped end. Got one of those vine clusters with a white symbol on them here, so let's see if we can replicate that. Yep, there we go. Side note, anything that appears flat on the white symbols will be pointing slightly upwards on the tree, which made these puzzles really hard to visualise for me. At least that's my excuse for spending 40 odd minutes in the first chapter of this game. Now, I like this as a puzzle. Replicate a pattern, simple, doable, does the job. There's a slight problem though. This isn't the only one of these patterns we need to copy. Some of those patterns are on other screens, and you don't get any feedback as to whether you've entered one of those correctly. Meaning you have to go and check if you did it right. At the moment it's only one screen away, not bad, but you guessed it, it's worse later. At this point you might expect me to compare Demian to certain other first-person puzzle-centric adventure games, but let's be honest, for all the jokes I've made over the years, even Myst never got quite as obtuse as this game does. Past the vines we find a car and a signpost to Rachel House. Guess we're going there later. Poke the car and find it's locked. Further poking with the knife doesn't help, nor with the stick we inexplicably got from stabbing the lever twigs earlier. Something else I had to remind myself of going back and watching this footage. So we return to that first set of vines we encountered. We'll make this pattern using the lever sticks over in the other area, and away the vines go. Next area, ahoy! There's a tree with berries on it. Not that you'll know that yet, there's no description text for them. Not much to do here, we'll head forwards. Another tree, another symbol, and a bowl. A tree bowl. Sure, why not? Clicking on the tree has us looking at a bunch of crows. Some have antlers, one has two heads, one is presumably the source of the one with two heads. Nothing happens when you poke them. Bit of a dead end here. Well, not entirely. We've got a new symbol to try out. First, go back one scene and apply bowl directly to tree. We have berries. Yay! Second, the new symbol we found. So we go back to where the lever sticks are, but before we deal with that, something I forgot to do earlier. An essential instinct for any wanderer of the woods. Poke the body with a stick. Or whatever this is. Can't help but feel they're just watching me, and it so happens they're hanging from a tree, like it ain't nothing. The guy has another one of those symbols on his chest. Pulling the levers to match will make a tree branch grow out of where the symbol used to be. On that branch hangs a single key. Well, mine now. And it's only after robbing the poor bugger that I think, hey, maybe I should talk to them. Turns out he's being tortured by an evil crow. At least that's how I'm reading that sentence. He wants that crow brought to him. Go back to the car, turns out the key fits, but all we're interested in is the boot, apparently. Get some rope. Now, remember the tree with the crows, and how it had a symbol at its base? Well, we can pull the tree levers to match that symbol, but that's another puzzle in itself, because there's a vine gate between the levers and that tree. No point in doing the tree symbol if the vines are going to block us from seeing the result, so how can we do both? You notice how the first vine gate and the crow tree symbols can be replicated using only 2 sticks each? Well, we can implement both symbols at once. Genuinely, I like this bit of puzzle design because it iterates on what we've done already. A small change that opens up new possibilities. It's like the game is going, okay, you've mastered the basics, now solve this part, show us how smart you are. And it did make me feel smart in a small way. That's what I'd hope for from a well-designed puzzle. Unfortunately, all that did was make the birds disappear. At least, I think that's what happened. Real talk, things get fuzzy around this point as I desperately tried to get the birds back. You'd think all I'd have to do is unmake the crow tree symbol with the levers and the birds would come back. It was not that simple, and I ended up having to look up a walkthrough. Long story short, the crows are back. I combined the stick with the rope together to make a slingshot, and we take aim at the two-headed crow. That's me tell. It's another puzzle. Equipping the slingshot? Okay, I'll stop that now. Equipping the slingshot, and some off-screen ammo apparently, because seriously, what am I firing here? And clicking a crow will cause them to squawk, in different tones. Hit them in the right order and the two-headed one will pop down to the base of the tree. Next part was only difficult for me because I'd ran around this forest for so long I'd forgotten that this curved branch is where I picked the tree bowl up in the first place. Plonk down the bowl of berries to distract the crows? Get out the knife and hooray, crow corpse! And yes, the crow had another symbol on it. No, I have no idea what that symbol was meant to do. Give the two-headed crow to the one-headed man, he gives us a big antique key that looks like it opens something in the Spencer mansion, and then the man vanishes. I mean, at this point I'm genuinely surprised at how surprised I'm not. Also, there's been this goddamn 8-second 2-note music loop going on and on and on in the background the entire time I've been here, like a relentless reminder of the circles I'm going in, the hopeless futility of spending your time on such a meaningless okay, a bit personal, moving on. We use the giant ornate antique key on the car and get inside for a wee nap. When we wake up, there's another girl about our age. The whole family appeared, in fact. Since we are a small girl lost in the woods, they decided to take us with them, which is really the most sensible thing that's happened so far. Also, it turns out we're named Chloe. Good to finally find that out. The other wee girl is Lara. Her parents are creepy, they wear masquerade ball masks and don't say much. It's starting to get weird, I'm not gonna lie. As you probably guessed, we get to Rachel House and meet more masky people. The kids are sent upstairs to bed. They promise to protect each other, which is nice. I don't have a joke here, it's just nice. Also, Chloe doesn't remember anything other than her name, which was not even close to clear beforehand. And that's chapter 1 dealt with. Bloody hell. Perhaps, understandably, I was a bit fatigued at this point. Whatever energy got me through Space Quest 3 without a walkthrough back in the day has long since left me. I quit the game for the day, having spent over an hour trying to pick up what this game was putting down. It threw everything at me. Unintuitive UI, rubbish translation, poor signposting of puzzles, obfuscation of the effects of my actions. Whatever atmosphere it built up from visuals and audio was drowned out by the feeling that I was wrestling my way through a game that didn't want to be played. At least not by me. But I got through the first chapter. And later I came back, ready to see what the rest of the game had in store for me. Then I found out I hadn't saved my game. I'd have to start from the beginning. And at that point, I was done. I tried with this one. I don't know what I expected for $2. I went in anyway to find out, and this is what I got. The maxim I had in mind was, good things can come from bad games, and there is good to be found here. Despite not signposting when things happened off screen, the pattern matching puzzle worked well and even escalated to a more complicated tier. It didn't crash. Yeah, I think that might be all the positives. Look, I don't know the circumstances behind this. Maybe this is one person's first foray into games development, and if it is a first time effort, I've seen worse. I couldn't do it though. The problems compounded upon themselves and I couldn't face the idea of going back to it, certainly not in this time frame. It's not because the game is too simple. I had plenty of positive things to say about the likes of Tormentum or Bad Dream Coma, and they were no more complex than this, gameplay wise. Neither of those games, however, had me questioning what I was doing with my time. Half the time I was playing Demian, I was wondering if the game was simply being obtuse, or if something was genuinely broken. And it got to be too much. In any case, now I know. An attempt was made, it's not completely without merit, but I couldn't keep going. There's lessons to be learned here, and hopefully they can be applied to something new. For now, however, I'm done. And I'm not even sure at this point if I'm talking about the game or this video.